'Tis I, your old pal King Chuck. What a beautiful day here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. 77 degrees. I was actually thinking about going to the store and getting some tomato plants to plant into my garden, but I see that it's going to be 41 degrees tonight. So a little still too cold. You know, they say that the best time to plant is Mother's Day, but Mother's Day was a little early this year, and this weekend we're expecting a lot of rain and thunder showers, and yeah. So I'm gonna hold off for a little bit. I mean, when the harvest ended, I was still getting a lot of tomatoes that were still on the vine, still green, still growing, and then the frost hit, and yeah, I did lose some crop, but hey, my mom still had some tomatoes that she could can. You know, my last Bee-otches of the day, of course, was all about how I feel about Grand Rapids in general, and about the people. And I've been attacked since I moved here by multiple male and female Karens alike, who just look at me like I'm a total loser and I deserve to be their punching bag. Last weekend it was an asshole who I saw at the park who claimed that I was a pedophile for following his daughter. 4-year-old girl, whatever. I would never fucking do that. I would never, ever harm a child. The reason why he said that was because my dog was following his dog, and I understand. I should have told my dog, let's go somewhere else and leave these people be. I should have done that, but I wasn't thinking. But because of what this asshole did, I'm not sure if I ever want to go to that park ever again, because he was there a couple of days in a row. And it just made me hate this town even more, because as I mentioned in this podcast, I haven't had a girlfriend in years. Last 2 women I actually slept with wouldn't even have sex with me, period. I mean, one of them was a heroin addict, and behind my back she was using me for money. The other girl, she just wanted my money. And I mean, I don't want to be that. Ever since I was a little boy, people have always looked at me as that guy. The guy who will take one for the team. Date that ugly girl, because that girl, nobody wants that girl, but hey, nobody wants Chucky either. And it's just not me. Because let's remember something. When I was a boy, there was a girl at my school. She had a very bad flatulence problem, and they all thought that I would be perfect for. Kids at school just teased me, saying that we were boyfriend and girlfriend for some reason. And I just look at my childhood memories, and there were very few good ones that involved school. And of course, things only got worse with my mom making me live with her. She had a friend who was morbidly obese, and we lived with her after when she left my dad, and turned out that she was a prostitute. She was having sex parties on the weekends, and she would give blowjobs to any guy who had no standard whatsoever. And then when I got into high school, I was a nobody. I didn't play sports. Um, and, I was in the school band, but I wasn't good because I didn't really practice a lot. I just lost all interest. And my dad kept telling me, school comes first, son. And, my dad got mad at me multiple times because I didn't hang out with anybody. And he would even tell me stuff like, people are your friends, not television, not the radio. Blah, blah, blah. That's how he was. And because, when I look back at what my dad told me, I hate to say it, but this is part of the reason why both his wives left him. But anyway, including my mom, of course. And so the rest of the story is that my dad, but yeah, that's why my mom pushed me to date this really ugly girl from, I lived in northern Michigan, so I ended up dating this girl from Mansalona, which is, if you live in northern Michigan, Mansalona is not a very bright, the townspeople aren't very bright. I'll just say that. So, anyway, my mom and dad, they, in a way, they pushed me in the wrong direction. And, my mom, but anyway, the rest of the story was that this is part of the reason why when I was in tech school, there were these group of guys who invited me over to go with them to Deja Vu. And I'll be honest with you, they're the only girls in my life who I felt happy to be around. Because these women, the one thing I heard about exotic dance, and I'll be honest with you, they're some of the most friendliest people I've ever met in my life. And it breaks my heart that I live in a city where you have to drive 40 miles one way just to go to a strip club and hang out with hot chicks. But, it's like, oh, well, you can go to church. And I'm like, okay, do I need to tell you the story about what happened to me years ago at the one church I went to for a couple of years, about the guy who tried to gyp me out of $500 because he could get off his ass and do shit? Yeah, it's like I would do shit for him. I would drive him all over the place. I would, it's like, and not only that, a couple of times we'd go to Meijer, and, he was a very, very compulsive milk drinker. And what he would do is he would just load our cart with milk, and I was the one that had to push it after a day at work. He didn't give two shits about other people. It was about me. And not only that, it's like he would get into these stupid arguments, not arguments, but he would just rant on about why his personal life sucked. I swear to God that at times, and I'm sorry if I'm going to sound somewhat wrong here, but I'll say it anyway. It sounded like at times that that he was the love child of Charlie Brown's school teacher, womp, 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 and Step and Fetch It. Because everything that came out of his mouth was pure stupidity. He blamed, this was a guy who even told me, no joke, that America should start another war because every time we get into a war, the economy we have the best economy ever. What? Okay, so we're in war with Iran right now, and I just passed, 4 gas stations that are either $4.98 or $4.99 a gallon. Yeah. And all I can say is I am extremely happy right now that some of the most progressive Democrats are way ahead in the polls here in Michigan. You know, Jocelyn Benson is an example. I hope she becomes our next governor. Jocelyn Benson is currently the Secretary of State here in Michigan. And I was at the SOS the other day. And, you know, of course, if you live in another state, by the way, the Secretary of State is our version of, what do they call it? DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles. And the story is, all I had to do was make an appointment online and walk in. And guess what? I was in and out 15 minutes. It was fast and efficient. It was one of the best experiences in my life. You know, and even though the guy, I had to renew my driver's license and renew my tabs for both my vehicles, and the guy was kind of a jerk. I hate to say it, but this is why I want her to be our governor. She ran the SOS efficiently, and I think, I hate these stupid ads with Perry Johnson, where he's attacking her by saying, "We're going to try her for gross incompetence." Okay, so how many fake signatures you and John James have on your stuff? Yeah. I got news for you. Both of you deserve to rot in prison. Oh my God. Yeah, 47-47. How about 86-47? Yeah, let's get them out of here. Oh my God. Yeah, this, I love the fact that Jocelyn Benson's in the lead right now. I mean, even with all the stupid ads for Duggan, and Duggan, he was a Democrat when he was the mayor of Detroit, but he's running as an independent, and now he's pretty much a shit. Basically, they're trying to split apart the ticket between the Democrats and the Democrats, because there's some Democrats who are very far to the left and pro-democracy, and others who are basically Republican light. And that's exactly who Mike Duggan is. He's Republican light, and he basically wants to, and it's like, but here's the thing. What amazes me is, the type of people who actually want Duggan to be president, governor of Michigan. But I'm going to vote for Jocelyn Benson. Period. Full stop. I think she can get shit done. Yeah. And, of course, by the way, I should also say that I endorse Abdul El-Sayed as senator. And, Mallory McMorrow, she's a centralist, and so is the other bitch who's running. And I know some people are like, well, oh no, we can't have a brown-skinned terrorist to be our senator. No. I got news for you, folks. I got news for you. He's not a terrorist. He's a smart guy. He's a true progressive who wants true American values. We need, folks, Alyssa Slotkin, the other senator here in Michigan, is a centralist. I mean, she grew up in a wealthy family. Her family started Ballpark, the hot dog company. And she grew up in immense wealth. And the thing is, folks, that's the thing about Alyssa Slotkin. We shouldn't allow people like her to be, and it's like we only allowed her to be a senator because there was no other choices out there that were good. man. But, you know, this blue wave is coming. And, you know, I would imagine that this asshole who called me a pedophile was a Republican. I just saw it in him. So, you know, I'm reminding myself there's other places in town that, you know, have a dog park. And, you know, it breaks my heart that, you know, I look at the dog park that's by me. And, you know, there's a lot of trash everywhere because people use it as a dumping ground. I mean, I've even seen used condoms there. And there's that part of me that says they should put cameras in there to stop everybody who is who dumps their shit. You know, and, you know, the people who allow their big ass dogs to poop everywhere and they don't clean it up. You know, they even have a post. They even put up posts out there. You know, you got to clean up after your dog. And they don't do it. I mean, I always bring dog bags with me to clean up after my dog. And then, on top of that, and then there's homeless people. You know, the park has Wi-Fi. That's the good news. But here's the bad news. You got all the homeless people who come out of nowhere and use the park. And, you know, they sit under the gazebo and just loiter. You know, and some of these people look very rough. And you know, there is a part of me that says I feel bad for them. You know, and I've seen one person, he's got long gray hair and he's got a Vietnam War hat. But there's another guy who comes to the park, and we've actually, you know, my dad and I have had conversations with him. And unfortunately, he's a Trump supporter and thinks that Donald Trump will make everything affordable again. Oh my God. And, you know, I don't get it, folks. I simply don't get it. You know, and this was a guy who was homeless because his ex-wife kicked him out of the house. And he's been out on the street, you know, living in the woods for some time. And I'm just, and he's like, oh, I can't wait till everything gets in order. Okay, no, it's not going to get in order, dude. Get your fucking head out of your ass. The reason why everything's too fucking expensive now is because Trump lied. He got us into a war over oil, and now gas is now $4.99 a gallon. But he probably doesn't care because he doesn't drive. He doesn't own a car. And if he did have a car, you know, he probably had to give it up years ago to, you know, for whatever reason. And then, but, you know, it's like he buys a lot of stuff from, like, the dollar store, too. Well, even dollar store stuff is going to be expensive. Because, you know, look at the price of diesel, $6.29 a gallon. And, you know how stuff is priced? By figuring out the price of diesel, the price to, you know, make the product. And, you know, we use fuel to get items from point A to point B. That's how the economy works. It's the way it's always been. And then, but, you know, I tried to tell myself maybe it's just time to go to another park. You know, I mean, I've said this once. Look at what happened to me a couple of years ago with Rivertown Crossings. This nasty security guard screamed at me because I carried around a little video camera, and she claimed that I was putting it under girls' skirts. Well, guess what happened? I stopped going to that mall. And not only that, the security department at that same mall got into trouble recently because they booted out a guy with Down syndrome because he dressed like an elf. this is what's wrong with West Michigan, folks. And I do pinpoint it a lot to one family, and it's the DeVoses. The DeVos family owns West Michigan. And, it's not just the DeVos family, but the Christian Reformed Church. All these assholes. And I hate to say it, but, after I quit my old church, I made the mistake of going to a church. It turns out it was Christian Reformed. It was called Encounter, and it's on Kalamazoo Avenue. Turns out they owned the church. But you go in, and it just feels like a modern-day non-denominational church. But it's not. It's actually owned by the CRC, which is a huge reason why I quit the church. But my mom still goes there. She watches Sunday services and gives to the church. He doesn't show up in person, but she still hands them a check every week, which is foolish, but that's my mom. But the point is, I look at the Pistons this year. The Pistons are kicking ass and taking names this year. They just beat, the actually, I hate to say it, but the Cavaliers are beating them 3-2 right now. But they're going back to Detroit tomorrow, and, they'll have home field advantage, thankfully. So let me tell you the story. They beat the Magic, and the Magic is owned by the DeVos family. They've owned the Magic for many years now. And, the DeVos family, they have their hands all over sports, here in Grand Rapids as well. And, they basically want to shove their morals up everyone's asses. And basically, and like I said, I've said this a couple of times, a lot of people in the strip club industry in Grand Rapids believe that the DeVos family played a role in strip clubs shutting down because it was all because of Judy Rose, and Judy didn't have I think it was $80,000 to challenge the city strip club laws. And then what happened was and this is what Judy did. She came up with the money from a age-old donor. She didn't say who that person was, but there was speculation that it was DeVos because Dick DeVos, was running for governor at the time. Thankfully, he failed, and he lost, and she appeared in one of his campaign ads as a woman on the street. The sad story is that, I told you why I love strip clubs. It's because I'm a loner. I love being around women, and I'm tired of going to it, and it's like I told you folks, I went, I've been to a couple of churches in town, and I tried the bar scene. I'm not a bar guy at least anymore because I'm not a drinker. And one of the last times I went there was an asshole named Eddie Johnson. He hung out at what is a place called Mulligan's in downtown, in Grand Rapids in Easttown, and he had me, he lied to me. He said that, I have a party after, when the bar closes, we're gonna have a couple of hot chicks over. He lied to me. They never came. There were no girls, and it was me and him, and he begged me to have sex with him the whole night. And I was scared to leave him because he put a few beers in me. And one of the last times I went to Mulligan's, I was pulled over for alleged drunk driving. Thankfully, my BAC wasn't high enough. to get arrested. But folks, I'll say this once. I made some serious decisions that day, and I said, why do I need to go out to the bars? And too many times only men want to talk to me. And, I'm sorry, but I'm not gay. I respect the LGBTQ plus community. I respect their right to get married and fall in love. But the problem is that too many of them assume that people like me are gay because I'm alone. I'm a loner. I don't talk to many people. But I'm not gay. Okay? And I know that my people skills have never really been good. As a matter of fact, I've come to that point, But yeah, I should have told you this too. That when I talked about it on Facebook, about what happened to me on Sunday, my dad read it, and he wanted to talk to me about his experiences. And, he told me about the fact that he had a girlfriend in junior high, but he didn't have a girlfriend in high school, which is why he dropped out. But, then he met my mom, and, he tried to leave her, and it didn't happen, but things only got worse when his cousin came down with a trailer and made them live up in northern Michigan. And and the only thing that kept their marriage together was me. But then I ended up feeling with the same shit he did. I was his height, 5'6", he was, actually I'm a full inch taller than he is. He's 5'5", I'm 5'6". I'm short, I'm fat, I'm autistic, I'm nerdy looking. And what bothers me is I've had too many people look at me like I'm a pervert, that I'm a loser, whether it's that security, that ugly fat security guard at Rivertown Crossings. Of course, I told you Rivertown's not doing so hot right now. They're losing stores left and right, thankfully. Talk about karma. I had to deal with the asshole from the Buzz Board who, the Michigan Radio and TV Buzz Board, who he and a bunch of people started a fake username to go after me for no reason. And, and that person, by the way, his wife left him because he was a total asshole and couldn't pay the bills. And it's sad. Why do people love to push, it's like that old saying, pick on somebody your own size, and you pick on people who are smaller than you, and you love to, and that's how some people are entertained. They love to see, small people get hurt. I mean, it's like, somebody who, likes to kick a dog or a cat or any innocent animal. I mean, some people are just fucking heartless. And that's who the DeVos family is. That's who they are. They look at people who go to strip clubs because in their eyes, they're losers. They're losers because they're without a woman. So they actually have to pay a woman $20 to sit on their lap. So, what's the difference? It's like I paid, I've taken a lot of women out to dinner, and that's $50, and it's a lot of money. I've taken them to some nice restaurants. I paid the whole bill. I've taken girls out to hockey games. Unfortunately, one of them was a Griffins game. Bad idea on my part. Oy vey. Of course, for one girl, I gave her $1,000 to aid with her heroin addiction, which she hid from me. What did I get from those relationships? Nothing. N-U-T-H-I-N apostrophe. Nothing. You see, and these people are like, well, you should go to church. No, I told you why I don't go to church anymore. Well, there's some churches in Grand Rapids that have some wonderful singles. No, because my father went to a singles ministry years ago. And guess what happened there? The woman that he dated cheated on him with a wealthy lawyer and had a kid with him. I mean, Christian women are fucking assholes. They are fucking cunts. That's who they are. I'll be honest with you. If I'm on a dating site and I put Jesus first and foremost, instant left swipe right there. That means that they are probably MAGA. And I know there are Christian women out there who hate Trump. God bless them. But, if they're going to, but yeah, some of these people do say they're moderate. And that's not good enough for me. The point being is, I know some of you are like, Chuck, you're autistic. I understand. And you're just like Rain Man talking about the reason, they do, if you've seen the movie Rain Man. Yeah, Rain Man, Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise. And, of course, the story was that it's the movie about the autistic guy who, and his younger brother, and they go on a cross-country trip because they were supposed to fly, but unfortunately they couldn't fly because Raymond, who is Hoffman's character, he is scared to fly because he reads off a list of plane crashes. And and Cruise's character, he reads off all the names of airlines and all the crashes they've had, and Cruise is like, name me an airline that hasn't fucking crashed. Qantas. Yeah, the Australian airline. So they end up going on a cross-country trip because of this. And I'm like, there is a difference. Okay? First of all, and I think since then, Qantas has had a few accidents. I don't remember, but anyway. But, it's not necessarily the airline's fault that they've had accidents. I mean, it's like, saying that you don't want to drive a Ford because, this Ford got into an accident and that Ford got into an accident. It was human error. I mean, it's also who designed the airline. But then you look at people. And I think to myself about the bad experiences I've had with black people. I had a black roommate when I was a young boy. When I was in tech school, who didn't do jack shit. And one of the things that we had to do every week was clean the bathroom. And he refused to do it because he only cleaned up after himself. So I cleaned the bathroom from top to bottom one day, and right before room inspections, there was a big giant pile of shit all over the toilet. So, this asshole didn't even sit down to shit. He didn't even clean up after himself. He expected everybody to clean his shit for him. And, growing up in heavily white northern Michigan, I was always told about the horror stories about black people. I told you the story about the great aunt and uncle that I had who moved up north because they hated black people, and and their nephew who they raised you know, went to jail for trying to shoot a black gang in Detroit who shot him. And, and the way I look at it, folks, is, I look at my life in Northern Michigan versus Detroit. And I wish I had a better life. I mean, I'm serious. I look at myself growing up and thought to myself, I missed out on a lot because of how I was raised. And, anyway, but, back to the DeVoses. I was going to say this. So the DeVos family, I was so happy they lost to, that the Magic lost to the Pistons. The Pistons have been definitely on a surge last couple of years, especially knowing that just a few short years ago they had one of the worst seasons in NBA history, and people wanted the owner to sell the team, and of course the owner did not sell, and he only made things better because he realized he had the wrong coach. He had to buy out his contract, cost him like almost $50 million, I think. But, Tom Gores knew that he had to please the fans because, there were 3 other teams in Detroit. And now the Pistons are doing better than the Red Wings, who didn't make the playoffs. The Tigers, are, they're turning into a really bad dumpster fire with all their injuries, especially in the pitching department. And, of course, the Lions. Now, the Lions didn't make the playoffs this year, and, they thankfully won. They were 9-8 on the season, but, there's always next year. This next upcoming year, I should say. But you see, folks, I love it when the DeVosses fail because of what they did to Grand Rapids, what they have been doing to Grand Rapids for decades. And, what's interesting to note. So I want to tell you this story. Yeah, I told you this story, but I'll tell it to you again. So years ago, there was a couple of years ago, there was this, I told you this story because of Hulk Hogan and the fact that there's this new arena in Los Angeles called the Intuit Dome, which is the home of the Los Angeles Clippers basketball team. And I told you the reason why they got this brand new arena was because they finally got a new owner who actually gave a shit about the fans. And that owner, of course, is Steve Ballmer. The previous owner was, of course, Donald Sterling, who was banned from the NBA for life because he made the mistake of talking to his mistress about not letting these people into the game, and the fact that he was a hardcore racist. And not only that, he was well known for evicting black people from his apartments and whatever for just cause reasons, apparently. So when he was being tried, Sterling made up a list. I guess he made up this list of all the NBA owners and some of the shit that they've done. One person in particular was Larry Miller, who was the owner of the Utah Jazz. And so the story was, a long time ago, Miller owned a TV station in town, in Salt Lake City, called KJZZ. I wonder how the station got its call sign. So the story was, he owned this little TV station, KJZZ. It was the UPN affiliate in Salt Lake City. He actually fought to break the contract. He wanted to break the contract with UPN. And the reason being was because it was too black. He complained it was just too black. And he said, well, Salt Lake City is a white town and Mormon. And, what the fuck? Oh, they're carrying too much filthy shows. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, that's why, and I'll tell you, when you're one of the smaller TV networks you can pretty much air whatever you want. Because, the reality is that, the bigger networks, they have standards, and sometimes if you're a smaller network, you'll do everything you can to bring viewers in. So the story was KJZZ dumped UPN because it was too black. But, in a way, karma won, because Larry Miller died at 60. I think it was only 64 when he died. Yeah, and so his widow, Gail, took over the team. And then she sold it to a guy named Ryan Smith. Ryan is a whack job. I've seen pictures of the guy. He's just weird. He's a billionaire. And, the guy is, guy looks like he's 30 years old. He's actually like late 40s. He's also Mormon, which says a lot. So the story is that he now owns the Jazz and a new hockey team that actually used to be the Arizona Coyotes, which is the Utah Mammoth. I almost said Avalanche. That's Colorado. So the story kind of goes like this. The Arizona Coyotes, they used to be the Winnipeg Jets, and then they moved to Phoenix in the 90s, and, they wanted to compete with, and the thing was, they never were really popular at all. And, I actually went to a Coyotes game 20 years ago, and Red Wings were playing in town, and of course the Red Wings beat the Coyotes. And I swear, for every Coyotes jersey that was out there, there were maybe 2 Red Wings jerseys. They were not popular. And I'll tell you the reason why, in my opinion. It's because people in Arizona don't like to be cold. If it's 113 degrees outside, it's, they're partying. And, if it's 113 in Arizona and 113 here in Michigan, it's a difference because we have humidity, they don't. As a matter of fact, it rained in Arizona when I was out there many years ago, and I could smell the rain. And my mother laughed her ass off, because I said, it smells like rain. And it's like, the rain, because out in Arizona, it's all dusty. Even the water tastes dusty out there. So this is what happened with the Coyotes. They went through bankruptcy, couple of ownership changes. So they sold to this guy named Morello. He owns a couple of radio stations in Los Angeles. KLOS was one of them. Legendary rock station. He owns that station. He owns K-Day, KDAY, which was a pioneering rap and hip-hop station. So he bought those stations, and he owned the Coyotes. So this is what happened. He lost the lease to Glendale Arena. So he actually had to move the team to this tiny little college arena called Mullet Arena. And it only sat not even 5,000 people. the team was just no longer profitable as a result. So he made the announcement that he wanted to sell the team to Ryan Smith. But what happened was the NHL this is what happened. They told him that you're going to be keeping the name. You're not going to sell the team. But you can sell the players and the coaches and all that to Ryan Smith. So that's what he did. And so the team, that portion of the team moved to Utah. And of course, they now play at the Delta Center, which is the longtime arena for the Jazz. And now the team is known as the Mammoth. And so this is what happened. Morello, this is what he did. So this is what happened. He tried to buy some land that was up for auction. The auction was called off. And he lost his interest in running the team. So he ended up giving up the rights and privileges of the Coyotes to the NHL. So now the question is, well, what's the NHL going to do next about bringing hockey back to Phoenix? And here's my answer. Don't even think about it. Why? Because the fucking Coyotes went bankrupt. But, when you go back to Larry Miller, it's like, okay, dude, you don't want to carry UPN because they're too black, and yet you own a basketball team. Oh, but we had Pistol Pete Maravich. And don't get me wrong, Pistol Pete was a great basketball player. The guy, get this, the guy died of a massive heart attack at just 40 years old. And it turned out that the guy, when he died, they found out that he was born with a really weird heart. Like it was missing some very important pieces. And some people think it's a miracle that he could play so good, because he wasn't really all that winded or any of that stuff. Anyway. But of course, he also mentioned the DeVoses. And of course, I told you the story about the DeVoses. I think I told you this story. That they donated like $5 million of their own money to anti-gay causes. Anti-LGBTQ causes over the years, including gay marriage. And what happened was, not horribly long after the incident with Sterling, the horrible incident happened in Orlando with the Pulse nightclub. 49 people died, shot to death. And the sad truth was, so anyway, the DeVoses could have said, sucks to be you. But they knew that the NBA, they were kind of now on the NBA shit list. So this is what they did. They gave $3 million to help with the victims' bills. And they also flew a banner at the home arena, which used to be called Amway Arena, and it's now the Kia Center. Now, I'm a little happy that it's not the Amway Arena anymore in Orlando. But I think part of the reason why it's the Kia Center, too, is because, the DeVos family, they own Fox Motors, a bunch of car dealerships, including the Kia, a Kia dealership on 28th Street. So all I can say about that is, and I believe they sell all makes and models of cars. Anything you can think of, almost, pretty much. But the point is, folks, is that, that's what you got to do. That's what some people do sometimes to stay off the shit list, is to do something they don't want to do. That's why you got all these companies giving to Donald Trump and his ballroom project. And of course now they're talking about building it with tax dollars now. And I'm like, what the fuck? $1 billion. Let's paint the water at the Washington Monument, whatever it is, because it looks like shit. Well, it's because of algae buildup. That's why it's so brown. It's like, dude, let's worry about healthcare. Let's worry about jobs. Let's worry about gas prices. Trump is not a man who gives, who cares about, he even says he doesn't really care about the American people. And, he goes around and he tells little girls, you can have 2 dolls. You don't need 26. Okay, dude. And how many houses do you have? How many yachts do you have? How many cars do you have? It's stinking thinking. And, I do try to think about the good things I have in life. I have a home. I do drive a nice vehicle. And I got a dog, and, both my parents are still alive. And, I know there's some people, I've met a lot of people my age and younger who don't have a mom or a dad or even both. I actually work with somebody who is a couple of years younger than I am, and both his parents are dead. And, and it kind of makes for some tough holidays for him. But the one thing I'm not very proud of is the fact that I'm 45 and still single. And my dad tells me, I understand, we do lack quality. And I look at my dad, and, I told you the story. My grandparents met because they had a mutual friendship in my grandpa's sister. And they, she introduced my grandmother to my grandfather, and they were married for 49 years, 7 kids, 4 boys and 3 daughters. But the sons did not have any success in love. My dad was divorced twice. My second oldest uncle never married nor had kids. He actually lives in a trailer park. He's 70 years old and still works at Meijer as a stock boy. And then my twin uncles, the one uncle was married twice, and both his wives were actually pretty nice looking. And he had a daughter with wife number 1, but some reason the marriage didn't last. And then my youngest uncle, well, he turned into an asshole. He knocked up a woman, got her pregnant. We didn't know that he was a baby daddy until the boy was 6 months old. And, the sad truth was, the mother was also with another guy and had a kid with that guy, and he was abusive. He was absolute white trash, and oh my God. And that's another reason why I don't date moms. It's like I don't want to deal with baby daddy drama, because this guy was a violent psychopath. And then my uncle, his problem was he was just never there for his son. And he cried for years and years. Oh, I paid $100,000 in child support. And how often did you fucking see your son? Almost never. It's like every time he went on, he had time for vacation. He didn't go see his son. He went to Las Vegas. He went to, vacation after vacation. He had no time for his son. He didn't, he was a sugar daddy. That's who he was. And that's why his son doesn't even call him dad. He calls him by his first name. What does that say? But But folks, I mean, this is part of the reason why when I go on online dating, I'm starting to kind of stay away from Grand Rapids women. I'm sorry, West Michigan women in general. I'm getting real tired of pen pals. I'm tired of, being judged. Just tired of, just... And I know, and what's even more funny is the fact that there's women from like Bermuda and other weird countries who look at me and they act like they want me. And I'm thinking to myself, these are fake profiles. I don't even think they're real. But all I can say is folks, this is part of the reason why I'm a Democrat. Because Republicans are bullies. You look at, and this is one thing, the DeVoses, they're really putting their money behind MAGA candidates. Terry DeBoer, she's trying to get Hillary Scholten's seat. And, Terry DeBoer even said that we need to return conservative values to West Michigan. And when I heard that, I'm like, okay, so you want to create more male and female Karens who look at me like I'm a sicko. You want to know who the real sickos are? It's people who call me a sicko, and yet they vote for a guy who won't release the Epstein files because he's all over them. He says that he's got nothing to hide, but yet everything's all redacted and covered up. And they probably also listen to WCSG radio. We crave sexy grade schoolers. It's so funny that even after the John Balio situation, that station, is still number one in the ratings at times. Because that's what they do in Christianity. They forgive. They knew that they were giving their money away to a pedophile who had sex with 2 little boys in a hotel room and was caught because he was on a John list. That's, sometimes I wish I never moved here, but I had to move here because of more conservative bullshit. My ex-stepdad, he was giving me an ultimatum. And that ultimatum was to get a job elsewhere or move out. Yeah, they didn't want me there. And there were no jobs in northern Michigan for me. And it was right after 9/11. And the only positive thing I can say about my stepdad is he's dead. Yeah. And I think his funeral is on Saturday. I'm not going to the funeral. Fuck that shit. Why should I have to, pay my respects to a total asshole who, wrecked both of my families? Yeah, Terry DeBoer, has, Terry, by the way, about half of Terry DeBoer's donations so far are from the DeVos family. And, and I told you the story that there were other people on the list who were assholes too, like Berger Chevrolet. I don't do business with Berger. And the reason being is because they screwed me over multiple times, and a couple of celebrities are on the list, including several former people at Wood TV8, which is where Terry worked for many years, including Leon Hendricks. Leon is the big fat black guy who used to be the weekend newscaster there. But yeah, folks, the more I think about it, the more I say, we got to sweep these people out of here. We got to tell this world that, we need to fight for the small guy here. because the small guy is now getting hurt big time. And I'm one of them. And, I'm a hard worker. I'm glad that my current, my bosses, for 10 years, I didn't make very good money at my job because of management. And then the former boss was, he was bought out. And the new boss started caring about everybody. But now I haven't had a raise in 3 years, and it has taken a number on my bank account. The point is, folks, is we need to tell Donald Trump his jig is running out. His time is running out. And, it breaks my heart that I live in a city that's controlled by this disgusting family that, of course, let's not forget that one of them used to be Trump's education secretary. And even her side of the family are assholes, the Prince family. The Princes sponsored a lot of very far right-wing Christian organizations, like the American Decency Association, which wanted Howard Stern off the air and got their wish. Of course, he moved over to Sirius XM, and now Sirius XM is in the process of trying to buy out iHeartMedia, which owns several radio stations here in Grand Rapids. I can go on and on, but the reality is we will win as long as here in Michigan, and elsewhere, the true Democrats will win. And as long as we try to keep these disgusting centralists out of here, we will succeed. If it can work in New York City with Mayor Mondani, it will work here in Grand Rapids and West Michigan and the whole fucking country. So there you got it. There you have it, folks. I best get going. Oh my God, over an hour now. I've been on a talking rampage as of late. So, good day and good luck, folks. I'll talk to you later.